I think that's what we are doing here resonates very much with the aims and the activities of the European Civic Forum. And I wanted to spend these 5 minutes to present you what we are doing. Tomorrow I'm going to talk more specifically about the topic of the conference, how to capture the wind of change. I want today to say how we are trying to understand how to capture the wind of change. Here it is Scuola Normale Superiore, which resonates with the French École Normale Supérieure, and has the same promoters long ago. Napoleon's founded both. And I would say that it is a pre-capitalist type of institutions in which it's a public institutions in which students, especially we have PhD students and master students, do not pay fees but receive grants to work. And it happened that with my presence here, but also with the ways in which these institutions developed, social movements and civil society organizations became very central. So the Scuola Normale Superiore main 2 older faculties are in Pisa, but in Florence is the new Faculty of Political and Social Sciences. And for political and social sciences in general, and for our faculty in particular, the idea to study how social movements and civil society can contribute to change in a positive directions, how social movements work, has been very central in our reflections. And within this Scuola Normale Superiore and this Faculty of Political and Social Sciences, the Cosmos Center on Social Movement Studies, that is co-hosting these initiatives, has to a certain extent also his roots in the European Social Forum, even though it is younger. It was born 10 years ago at the European University Institute before, and then moved here when I moved here. And it is an interdisciplinary center, even if the main focus is on political science and sociological studies, but we also have studies in anthropology, political theory, philosophy, and so on. Our aim is to study social movements and to help the movements we like, in particular, through the knowledge that we can acquire empirically through the use of different types of methodologies. We have, and you will interact with some of them here, many PhD students. We have a program of 4 years, and each year the new group, the new cohort is of about 20 PhD students, so we have about 80 PhD students, most of them either originally interested in social movements or that became interested in social movements socializing with us. We have postdocs, we have a different type of projects, especially comparative projects. We are a very international constituency because we were lucky enough to be able to give grants out also beyond Italian students. So half of our PhD students come from other countries than Italy. And this has been also a stimulus to try to understand not only what is going on in Italy, which is often quite depressing, but also what is going on in other countries. And also it emerged the idea that we discussed with Raphael and with the others about how to focus these 2 days on positive examples. We are all often depressed by a time that has been often defined as time of backlash, backsliding, and victory of fascist groups and so on. But I think that when we look beyond some main events, we also find examples of victories by progressive actors, including social movements and civil societies. So this is what we try to do also in general in the Center on Social Movement Studies, also organizing conferences, talks, roundtables, other type of activities that resonate very much with the purpose of the European Civica Academy. Just wanted to say something to connect this general welcoming to these institutions with the topic and the occasions of these encounters, the European Social Forum. We didn't start as Cosmos with the European Social Forums, but some of our first research were on the Genova Social Forum, and then we have investigated in depth also the Social Forums process, its consequences and dynamics. And this continues to be very central for our interest, that also touch upon how the European Social Forum had an impact on movements that followed, on the anti-austerity protest, on the so-called autumn of 2019, when a huge moment and partially at least successful upheaval happened in countries like Chile, and what we are studying now is also movements that are ongoing, are reach and involve young generations, from the mobilizations during the pandemic times to the new wave of environmental movement, the new wave of feminist movements. I think these are all examples of resistance to the backlash that is very much alive. So we study how these movements have an effect on the movements that followed, through legacies, to examples, to the creation of networks, because I think that also this type of initiatives has roots in the networks of trust and mutual understanding that developed 20 years ago. We study how democracy inside the organizations has been modeled also through the interactions of different movements, the memory and the legacy, how repertoires of actions also changed. So the forum was not only an important movement, but also presented an idea about an organizational format and a form of actions, the forum itself, that has been quite influential on the movement that followed. It helped understanding that movements are not only acting in the streets, but also are important in producing knowledge and are important in developing practices of solidarity that we have seen also in the anniversary of the Genova Social Forum with the Society of Care, in which also Raffaella is involved. But we also study how ideas, how proposals by movement have an impact and innovate, and specifically also how these experimentations inside movements on practices of alternative democracy have an impact on external forces, have an impact on the societies, and so how not only movement contributes often in civil society to democratization processes, but also to the deepening of democracy through very often sort of hybridizations of the borders between civil society and the institutions. And we've been studying in particular recent participations of movement in processes of constitution making, like in Chile, or referendum that have been promoted by social movements, like the referendum against the privatizations of water supply in Italy, or the emergence of movement parties that we are going also to discuss in these days. So I think that it is important in our work and in your work to try to understand how movements can be successful when they are, how they address challenges, and so in this way to learn how to capture the winds of change. So I'm thank you for these occasions for us, for our PhD students, for our postdoctoral researchers to reflect on these issues with you. Thank you also for teaching us how we can be more useful for this type of purpose, and I look forward to the continuations of this interaction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I give the floor to our colleague.